Everybody on the movie is aware of, you know, how far we've come and all the places that we've gone to. I think we're into our 5th year of figuring out what the story was on Castaway.
All right. Let's put the table right here. We'll just do the story.
I play Chuck Noland, who is a systems operational engineer for Federal Express.
Nikolai, tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. 50 seconds! When that clock hits 0, you send this truck. I don't care if Lennon himself comes out of his tomb with a priority package.
Chuck is just a normal guy. He's a conglomeration of a lot of modern people.
Castaway is a character journey of a man who was tied to time in our modern world in a very exaggerated way.
I absolutely positively have to get to Memphis tonight. Can't help you, try UPS.
I play Tom's girlfriend. They're in love, and it's not perfect, but they're in love.
Okay, I'll cancel Saturday.
No, don't. If I'm not here, I'm not.
Just so long as you're here New Year's Eve.
I will be here New Year's Eve, I promise.
We needed someone who really could hold the screen on her own and with Tom. So we needed a big star like Helen Hunt, because her presence in the film sort of bookends the movie.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I love you.
I love you too.
I'll be right back.
Hey, is all this turbulence from Santa and those 8 tiny reindeer?
Better buckle up, Chuck. It's gonna get bumpy.
Southwest of planet.
This is a story of the best thing that ever happened to this guy was you know, his plane blowing up and him being stuck on an island for a really long time.
Hello? Anybody?
His plane goes down, he washes up on an island, and all he has are a few Federal Express boxes. Everything he used to think was important, his watch, his beeper, his cell phone, his calendar, is completely useless to him. And so he has to learn to survive, first physically and then emotionally.
Well, the story as a story is very simple, and that is that he just gets stranded on a deserted island.
I never should have gotten on that plane.
What his spiritual journey is what the movie's really about.
Well, this was 1994. Tom Hanks was interested in doing some sort of movie about a modern man who got stranded on a desert island. Very quickly, it became clear that, well, that sounds great, but what happens to him on the island? And so I found these guys that were primitive technology experts.
My name's David Holliday, and Bill Broyles called me up one day in Tucson and asked me if I would take him on a trip someplace and show him about the desert and what it would be like if a man crashed in a plane.
I worked on the consultant team with Bill Broyles when we went to Mexico to work on some skills for the script.
I was hired to put together a team to take Bill to Mexico to do an initial training program with him.
They took me down to the Sea of Cortez, and they stuck me on the beach. I had to make a shelter, and then I had to figure out how to, very quickly you realize, oh my God, I've got to survive. Where do I get water? How do I do anything?
Shelter's first. And even in a rough environment where there's not much water, getting out of the sun or out of the wind, out of the elements would be one of your first concerns.
He was able to make the discovery of a broken, sharp edge, which gave him the edge that he wouldn't have otherwise. The ability to cut and scrape and gouge and dig.
I had to learn to make a knife out of rocks, out of stone, and then sharpen a stick, and then what do I eat? So I started spearing stingrays. Then I'd cut them up with my rock knife and eat them raw. And I very quickly thought, well, I need fire. I'm not going to eat these things raw anymore. Trying to make fire, it was a total comedy. I spent literally a day and a half trying to make fire. And I did all the stuff you do in Boy Scouts. I did this stuff, and they just would laugh.
Fire!
I had nothing to drink, and I tried to open a coconut. And it's very much like in the movie. I mean, I could not open a coconut for anything.
What we had to do was take the stone tools to create a sharp wooden point to be able to get that coconut. It's a tough thing to do.
I was so just passing every hour. It just took forever, and I had no one to talk to. And I got up this third morning, and this volleyball had washed up on the beach. And I went down and looked at it, and I thought, Wilson. And started playing with this volleyball and talking to it. I guess that's so clearly something part of being human, that you want to relate to something. And I found myself talking to this volleyball.
You wouldn't have a match by any chance, would you?
Wilson was there. It was a tangible object. I think it was very important. I think it was something that did maintain his level of sanity through the time that he was on that island.
So we ran around the beach kicking and verbally abusing Wilson and telling jokes about Wilson for the rest of the trip, and had no clue that it would end up being part of a movie.
So some of these experiences became it's kind of the rudimentary basis for what would happen to Tom Hanks' character.
It's almost like Chuck has gone through this time machine to this world where you don't need pagers, and you don't need the internet, and you don't even need FedEx, but you do need fire and shelter and water and food, and you also need somebody else to share the experience with.
Yeah, clamp. Well, that wouldn't make us stuck. Let's go. Unload. Oh, get him out of there. Right here. Two lines. One to the airport truck, one to the Moscow truck. I'm a troubleshooter at ground ops for FedEx, and I'm here trying to get the Russian office up to speed and a little bit more efficient.
I will say, I mean, the first shot in this movie was in Russia, and even though it was only a year ago, it seems like it was 4 years ago, just as it would to Chuck.
We're here in Moscow, shooting in Red Square. Sure beats Culver City. Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out who the screenwriter was who wrote, exterior, Red Square, winter. The whole crew wants to get their hands on. Tell them we'll give them $25 American and a carton of Marlboros to take the clamp off right now. Otherwise, we'll see them in court. What? Cut. Good. Brent, good.
Very nice. Beautiful. All right, so we're over here now, huh?
I was asking around if I was if I'm any kind of celebrity here, and by videotape, yes, but even then, very, very few of them, just because the whole Russian language barrier thing doesn't mean an awful lot of the American media culture has been able to translate.
While other directors work on this studio, Robert Zemeckis doesn't want to lose his time and started his project, Castaway. Tom has to lose a lot of weight.
There's a story around the world.
That's it.
But the funny thing about it doesn't say you're in Moscow.
It doesn't say you're in Moscow.
Isn't that funny?
It is funny.
There's some reporter sitting somewhere who has no idea.
No idea that
He's
you're
probably
here.
like right down the street here. He's writing that, getting it off the internet like half asleep. No, look, it's the Bob Zemeckis theme. Could have it. There we go. How do Russians read papers with big gloves?
What's weird about working in Russia is that you can't make out anything. The signs, the words, nothing. If you're in Italy or France or something, you can kind of figure out some of the words, but in Russia, you need an interpreter for everything.
He's going to make a little adjustment.
Вам надо сделать не одним, а двумя.
I need an interpreter. Tell him we're going to go back to the shot in the restaurant now. And action, Tom. Nikolai, tick-tock! That's the great adventure of making movies, is you get to go off and do. I've never been to Russia. I've never been to Red Square. And the first time I went there was because the hotel I was staying at was right across the bridge. I had a view of it from my there's where we're going to shoot tomorrow. I mean, this is the thing also, too, about making movies with Bob. Bob isn't going to blanch for a moment at the idea of making a movie. I mean, I said, well, how are we going to do that? How are we going to get into Red Square in order to shoot the scene? Oh, we'll take the trucks to Red Square. We'll set them up right there. I always forget that Bob is able to not be intimidated by that.
Do we like the way these trucks look? Well, they both got to be forward because the sort's going backwards. Right.
Yeah, we shut down Red Square, meaning, only people that were walking in here were our people. I have something to tell you about Red Square. When I was here scouting Red Square, I said, we're going to be able to shut down Red Square and shoot here, and they said, yes, as long as that flag isn't red. And I said, okay, very cool.
FedEx 88, position Jenna at 1526.
Oxygen! Rapid decompression! Losing cabin. Ditching switch on! Brace for impact!
The plane crash, we wanted to look absolutely real, which would make it more terrifying. So we did it at night, and we lit it only by the fire of the burning fuel and the lightning, and there was no like movie lighting or anything like that.
What can you do better at plane?
Nothing. We're done. We got it. We got it.
Check the gate?
Check the gate.
All right, guys, we're gonna check the gate.
It's very physical. I mean, you're being yanked around, and there's a lot of air blowing on you, and there's water that you gotta deal with. It's kind of like going to a big jungle gym every day and say, what do I get to do today?
And water!
And wind!
If all of acting is taking these small snippets of real time and then cutting them up and then putting them all together, acting in a scene like that, you're working in the smallest snippets. You really are. It's like 7 seconds here and 3 seconds here and 5 seconds there.
And cut.
The worst thing that happened to Chuck was his plane. He survived a plane crash. If it had just been that, if he had been rescued 2 days later, well, then I think he'd be haunted by that plane crash for the rest of his life. But the fact is, Chuck survived a plane crash, and then he survived the despair of total, solitude and isolation for another 4 years.
Anybody! Help!
We knew that the story took place in the Pacific because the Pacific was the largest body of nowhere you can be on Earth. We found the right island, and it turned out to be part of the Fijian Islands. It was still in the middle of nowhere as far as movie life, so yeah, we all kind of experienced what Chuck went through.
It was an extraordinary place. I mean, and that island becomes a really major character in the movie. It's like, in a way, after Tom, it was the next important piece of casting.
It was actually a sacred island, so there was nothing, not one single thing man-made on the island ever. I had to have like a little kava ceremony with the chiefs of the island. Our location manager, Mary, she had to do most of wining and dining of the local chieftains.
I had to go have a formal sabu-sabu in a Sulu and take kava, which is their ceremonial gift, and meet with them and offer prayers and request permission to look at the island, and then explain to them the story of the movie and basically obtain the permission of all the members of the family, which is about 80-some people. When Bob came back and he chose the island, we had invited the chief, the head man of the family, and his 2 other brothers and their spokesmen and their wives to come and have lunch with us and watch us film for the day.
When we're done with this shot here, we're going to be coming up here where it's a little more shady. You can see a little better. So everyone enjoying themselves? Did you have lunch? Yeah. Great. All right, well, thank you very much. All right. Take care.
When the local chiefs and the tribes allowed us to shoot there, it was perfect. It worked for us great. Our biggest problem, of course, was having no infrastructure for the crew. It was about an hour-and-a-half boat ride from the nearest hotel or civilization to get to this island, so that was a real hardship for us.
You get past very quickly the glamour that goes along with like getting to the set every day, because the entire crew rides on a boat and lands on a beach and walks into the jungle and finds the hut and slowly you get past that and you just incorporate that into the reality of what it is.
We had about a 3-week period where we built a production village. We built little what are called here berets, little huts for each department.
You Everything had to be brought onto the island and carried onto the island by boat. So we had a huge army of Fijians helping us out, the Boo Boys.
This Armada. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, more boats than you can count.
They have certain boats for high tide and certain boats for low tide. So it's just different. It's a lot of marine coordination.
Oh, well, it's insane. When the full complement of the company is here, it's well over 100 folks, and they have to come by boat all the way from the mainland of Fiji, and it's a close to 2-hour trip. If the tide is high, it's no problem them getting on the island, but if the tide is low, it's a little bit problematic. So it's not quite, you know, taking the 405 and getting off at Overland.
Once you have cameras and movie equipment around sand, sun, and water, salt water especially, things move really slow. Even though we did have one incredibly cooperative actor.
I must say that the first 3 days of shooting here were, you know, fraught with problems, but eventually you just figure out what to do, and it's really not unlike making a movie anywhere else.
Action!
It was hard because it was really hot and really humid, and it was a hard place to work.
How's the weather out here in Paradise?
Paradisical. Hot. Not bad though.
A little different than Moscow?
You know, in more ways than you'd imagine.
This is a movie in which every scene, every day, we've tested by way of a cause and effect sort of like theory. We were always saying, well, why is Chuck doing this today? He would already, and a lot of times we have negated what the plan was because he would have already figured out that thing we were going to shoot.
A year from now, we come back, and obviously very little changes on the island because it hasn't changed in billions of years. But Chuck has changed quite a bit when we come back next year, and you know, we'll continue his adventure. It's been 14 months since we shot part 1, and we're back at the same island, and we're shooting part 2, and this is where our main character, Chuck, has been on the island for over 4 years now. At this point in the movie, Chuck's mental state is acute depression.
Tom's, you know, remarkable weight loss saga was so crucial to the movie. It's not a gimmick. It's essential to the whole heart of the story, because if you don't come back 4 years later and see that this is a totally different man, the movie doesn't work.
Well, artificially on the other side, you know, I did no exercise and ate whatever I want to, you know, because I essentially wanted to look like your average 40-year-old guy and what his life is like. 4 years later, on a diet of pretty much all the fish he can spear and all the coconut he can eat, and maybe a few other things that he can find here, that's what he's been doing. Also living a very physical life. So, you know, he dropped about, you know, somewhere between 40 and 50 pounds, but it was good to lose it. And a lot of that was artificial weight anyway. So it was, you know, the year that we spent in between now and back then, I mean, for me it was mostly just, you know, just get in shape.
Action!
From a production standpoint, we wrote the book on what not to do the first time we were here. And the few things we've learned how to do right, well, we do those better now. And all those things that we did wrong the first time, well, now we do them right. So we have, you know, more boats, more everything. More everything is pretty much what it comes down to.
Our first trip to Fiji was a year ago. It is complicated because you think that you can prep the whole movie and then you'll just stop and you'll do whatever you do in between. And then 2 or 3 weeks and everything can be ready for the second half. And it really isn't. You're just mounting up a whole other movie again. So people have had to have a lot more prep than we anticipated. And this one is more complicated. The logistics and just what we're shooting this time. And of course, his look is much more complicated.
Action!
Typically, a crew member who's staying at the hotel in Denarau, they got to get up at probably 4:30 in the morning. You have to go and mount your boat at 5:30. You can then transfer yourself into a longboat with a Fijian driver, and he takes you to shore with all your stuff slung over your back. and you got to march down a beach a quarter of a mile with whatever equipment you're bringing, and then you come into quite a rudimentary little wooden shack and get ready for work for the first shot, usually at 6:45 in the morning.
Now, I don't know if we can shoot this wide shot. We're having a discussion about the sun. Is it behind a cloud now? Obviously it is.
Well, whenever you're working in a real natural environment, you're completely dependent on certain elements such as the tide and weather. The other day we had quite a storm blew in, and Bob and Tom, just sitting there on the set, threw in a line describing the new conditions we were faced with, and we just shot anyway. The rain started coming down, the trees were all tilted over, and we just went ahead and shot, and they took advantage of it.
We're jumping back and forth because one of the things we learned the first time we were here is that time and tide waits for no man. So we're really trying to match the tides as opposed, last time we were trying to just stay in like shootout locations. And man, this tide comes up very, very quickly or goes out very quickly. Then I thought when the tide gets lower, for the moonlight shot, after it falls over, we go up on that rock over there.
The thing about working on an island is finding shots to work and shoot all day. So we work with the tides. Right now we're doing a scene where Tom is trying to find Wilson. Low tide works because Tom can manipulate through the water easily. It's being able to move from point A to point B. We utilize these longboats. These are our workhorses, and we move and work wherever the tides are good.
Cut! Cut! Perfect, Tom. Yeah, they don't make movies like this very often, and now we know why. This is really hard.
To me, the movie's sort of an illustration of the idea that surviving is easy, but living is difficult.
The time that we all live by goes in very fast, calibrated increments. In the movie, there's a real shift of gears from the Federal Express modern time into that island time.
The greatest burden to Chuck's life is the clock. Time is this relentless thing that never ever lets up on him, and that's why FedEx is the perfect place for Chuck to work.
Because we live or we die by the clock. We never turn our back on it. And we never, ever allow ourselves the sin of losing track of time.
What happens when, his plane goes down is that the clock is gone. The clock no longer has anything to do with his life. The sun rises and the tides come in, and then the sun sets and the tides go out, but that actually has very little physical effect on Chuck's day.
Month and a half until we're into March and April, which is our best chances for the high tides and the offshore breezes. And there's not much time. But we live and we die by time, don't we? And let's not commit the sin of turning our back on time.
Isolation is the most painful thing that happens to Chuck. When he has to confront his solitude in his isolation, that's when things that we never think about come to the forefront.
I would rather take my chance out there on the ocean than to stay here and die, spending the rest of my life talking to a goddamn volleyball!
Finally, he escapes off the island in a very interesting way.
You just hang on!
And the remainder of the movie is his sort of returning back to Memphis, into his life, and his whole new life begins.
We buried you. We had a funeral and a coffin, and gravestone, the whole thing.
You had a coffin? What was in it?
The movie kind of takes on a whole nother life once he's off the island. I can't describe it any other way than someone who has died and has come back from the dead. And what are the ramifications of that?
For some people, going back to the real world is a shocker. Even after a month where we work with people, you have people who, they've slept in the bed every day of their life. When they go home, they sleep on the floor the first few nights. Other people walking into a room and flipping on a light switch off and on and off and on, they get fascinated by that.
The idea of both being drastically changed and at the same time being back at the same place where you started, I think is unique to what we were trying to do here.
One of the things that made me so interested in it is, I think when you strip away all the extras from life, not to mention movies, but you're sort of forced to find something you wouldn't have found otherwise. So by making it such a simple premise, I was just very curious what they would find.
The difference between being an actor in a trailer and on a set and being an actor on a beach in a movie, or on Red Square in the movie, or on the open water in the movie, it removes the movie-making aspect of it, too. There was one scene, as a matter of fact, where we were out in the open water and the raft is cast adrift, and that was the movie in microcosm right there. I told Bob, I said, sooner or later I knew that the raft would just be floating out there and I'd be on it doing something and you'd get it on film, and that was exactly what happened.
The journey becomes a metaphor for, no matter how many obstacles are thrown in our path, there are ways to accept them and live through them and understand life's mysteries as mysteries to be lived and not necessarily just simply problems to be solved.
Finally, most movies are about the most important events in its characters' lifetimes. The characters in it, they experience something that they will never experience again for the rest of their lives, and this is it. There's high adventure, but at the same time, there's a simple Zen-like understanding of what the things are truly important in this world.
Round concrete thing, it's not a former fountain, it's a former place of execution. You don't have a lot of those in America. You gotta come to the old world for places of execution.
All right,
I
got
got
it now.
Here we go.
EPK sees that, sees my goof up. Are they here when I'm doing the great stuff? No, they've run out of film, the EPK people have. Video.
We're shooting over Tom to Wilson. How could he come in from that side? This is great. This is a volleyball. Okay, I know. I know. Look here. We got ocean and tide and sun and wind. We're having trouble with the volleyball.
I think Bob's really impressed with me. Boy, I hope Bob's happy with my work.